welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of the Congressional Medal of Honor. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and tonight's episode is episode 51. It's another World War II episode, and again, going back to the South Pacific, and it's being brought to you by DesignCake Studios. They're a small creative design company with big talent in graphic and web design. If you or your business need a look, or maybe a new look, head on over to DesignCakeStudios.com. I know I did, and I couldn't be any happier with the logo and business cards I received from them, and I'm always getting compliments on both. When you contact them, tell them you heard about them here on the podcast, because if you do that, you'll receive a free consultation. DesignCake Studios, fresh thinking, made bold. And now, a tale of honor. Douglas T Jacobson was born on the 25th of November, 1925, in Rochester, New York, and went to school for both elementary and high school in Port Washington, New York. His father was a carpenter, and in addition to working as a lifeguard and swimming instructor, he worked for his father as a draftsman. At the age of 17, Douglas enlisted in the United States Marine Corps Reserve on the 28th of January, 1943. He attended recruit training at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island, in South Carolina, and was then transferred to the 23rd Marine Regiment at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Here, Douglas was promoted to private first class in July of 1943, and in December was deployed to the South Pacific. Douglas participated in campaigns for Tinian, Mariana Islands, and Marshall Islands, but it was his actions at Iwo Jima that earned him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving with the 3rd Battalion, 23rd Marines, 4th Marine Division in combat action against enemy Japanese forces during the seizure of Iwo Jima in the Volcano Islands, February 26, 1945. Promptly destroying a stubborn 20mm anti-aircraft gun and its crew after assuming the duties of a bazooka man who had been killed, Private First Class Jacobson waged a relentless battle as his unit fought desperately toward the summit of Hill 382 in an effort to penetrate the heart of Japanese cross-island defenses. Employing his weapon with ready accuracy when his platoon was halted by overwhelming enemy fire, on February 26, he first destroyed 2 hostile machine gun positions, then attacked a large blockhouse, completely neutralizing the fortification before dispatching the 5-man crew of a pillbox and exploding the installation with a terrific demolitions blast. Moving steadily forward, he wiped out an earth-covered rifle emplacement and confronted by a cluster of similar emplacements which constituted the perimeter of enemy defenses in his assigned sector, fearlessly advanced, quickly reduced all 6 positions to a shambles, killed 10 of the enemy, and enabled our forces to occupy the strong point. Determined to widen the breach thus forced, he volunteered his services to an adjacent assault company, neutralized a pillbox holding up its advance, opened fire on a Japanese tank, pouring a steady stream of bullets on one of our supporting tanks, and smashed the enemy tank's gun turret in a brief but furious action, culminating in a single-handed assault against still another blockhouse, and the subsequent neutralization of its firepower. By his dauntless skill and valor, Private First Class Jacobson destroyed a total of 16 enemy positions and annihilated approximately 75 Japanese, thereby contributing essentially to the success of his division's operations against the fanatically defended outpost of the Japanese Empire. His gallant conduct in the face of tremendous odds enhanced and sustained the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Douglas returned to the United States in April of 1945 after being promoted to corporal and was transferred to the Naval Shipyard in New York, New York. He then received the Medal of Honor from President Truman in October of 1945 and continued his stay at the Naval Shipyard until his discharge in December of the same year. 4 months later, Douglas re-enlisted in the Marines and this time worked as a recruiting sergeant at a recruiting station in Washington, D.C. 5 months later, in September of 1946, he was transferred to Oceanside, California, to the 1st Marine Division Fleet Marine Force as a replacement. They were aboard the USS General William Mitchell, and in December, Douglas joined the 1st Engineer Battalion and served in Peiping and Tsingtao in China. After being promoted to sergeant and returning home in December of 1948, Douglas reported to the Marine Air Detachment in Columbus, Ohio, and then returned to the Naval Shipyard in New York, where he was discharged in April of 1949. Now, I've never met Douglas Jacobson, but based on his history, he just seems like the kind of guy that could never say no or sit still. I say this because he went on to serve in the Florida National Guard for 8 months before re-enlisting in the Marine Corps Reserves in September of 1953. Here, he was a member of the 2nd 155mm Gun Battalion in Miami, and he was then ordered to active duty to attend Officer Candidate Course in Quantico, Virginia. Upon completion, Douglas switched from the reserves to active duty, leaving behind his rank as technical sergeant and now commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. Douglas bounced from a number of units from here on with a variety of different jobs, earning the ranks of 1st lieutenant, captain, and just before retirement, major. He retired in 1967 and lived in New Jersey selling real estate. 20 years later, he moved to Florida, and on the 20th of August, 2000, Douglas would die from congestive heart failure and pneumonia. Douglas T. Jacobson is buried in Arlington National Cemetery in Arlington, Virginia, Court 5, Section H, Stack 17, Niche 3. And that was a Tale of Honor. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of Honor podcast, and if you like this podcast, which I know you do, please be sure to leave a nice review, a good rating, and tell a friend. Just so you know, just a little for those of you who stick around to the end, the show has been submitted to Spotify. Spotify is now getting into podcasting, as they have been recently, and looking for shows, and I have submitted this show for review, and everything should be good to go in about a week, I'm thinking. So I will let you know when you can search for this on Spotify. For those who use Spotify a lot, this is a nice breath of fresh air. Being able to consume all your music and podcasts in one area. So I will let you know when we're up there. You can see more information, like when we're going on Spotify, on Facebook and Instagram, and at talesofhonorpodcast.com. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.